Having reviewed all the audio recordings at great length and having had experienced the initial vocalization, I absolutely wholeheartedly believe that these audio recordings did come from a Sasquatch. Hello and welcome to Squatchbot.com. I'm Darren Smith, and I absolutely hope that all of you are okay and that you and your loved ones are well. Here in California, it has been well over a month and we are still under the shelter-in-place directive, which is creating quite a hardship on many of us who rely on the tourism into the Yosemite area to sustain ourselves. So for those of you who are going through a similar challenge during this global crisis, do know that you are not alone. I think what's important right now is we maintain focus on stopping the spread and caring for our loved ones, and absolutely keep the faith that better days are yet to come. I would also like to welcome our new subscribers to the team. I have mentioned this on a number of occasions, that by working together, I think we have a much better likelihood of solving this mystery. And I very much appreciate your guys' input and help with things I don't understand. One such example of this was the unusual anomaly I noted during the last episode. I honestly did not believe that this phenomenon was lens flare, because I didn't think that the sun had moved so dramatically during such a duration to have created such an anomaly, and in my enthusiastic state that I had documented something significant related to the equipment malfunctions that I had experienced, I was anxious to share this information with you guys. If you haven't seen that video, I will post a link here so that you can check it out. Immediately after posting that video, I received a number of messages from you guys communicating that it was indeed lens flare, and I began an investigation of this, and to my surprise, after comparing still shots from the video footage, the sun had shifted dramatically during that short clip. And as also noted by some of you, the flare anomaly occurred in a later clip, which reaffirmed this point. After coming to the shared conclusion, I immediately posted a community forum message sharing my findings, thus ultimately agreeing that the most likely explanation of the anomaly in question was lens flare. This is why I really appreciate you guys joining me on this quest, because for sure I am going to make mistakes. I don't have a team of in-person collaborators to make videos with, or to compare notes with, and this community we're putting together here has an incredible wealth of knowledge and experience, and it is absolutely a treasured resource. Together, we have a much better likelihood of solving this mystery. So as you recall in the last episode, we were trying to get into that new area of interest where I encountered the Sasquatch last month. Unfortunately, there was just too much snow on the road for me to get my low clearance vehicle in there, so we had to abort our attempts. But I did mention that I would put together a backpacking trip if it turned out that the snow was going to continue in that area. However, I am happy to report that the snow has subsided and has given way to beautiful sunny days. And that means the temperature has increased dramatically, and I'm anticipating that snow to melt off pretty quickly. So we will absolutely be getting up into that area in the very near future. And I think it's important that we do get up there quickly, because as I mentioned, I absolutely understand why the Sasquatch are hunkered down in that location. And I believe they're going to remain there until the snow starts to melt off, at which point they're going to head back into the higher elevations for the approaching summer months. So there is a window of opportunity here because we want to encounter the Sasquatch before they get on the move. So it is important that we get up there quickly. But unfortunately, today there's for sure still snow up in that area, and we're going to have to postpone for a few more days here. And since we are in the shelter in place, as many of us are, I think today would be a great day to kind of look at some of the stuff that we've encountered thus far in our exploration of this area and to cook some comfort food. Shortly after moving to the Mariposa area in 2017, I started to receive a number of eyewitness reports of Sasquatch being spotted crossing a very short stretch of Road 426 near Bass Lake, California, just outside of the small mountain town of Oakhurst. I began investigating the area, and on one of my late night investigations in the dead of winter, I had an unusual happening that many believe was an encounter with Sasquatch. I had been in the field for several hours when suddenly a tree came crashing down in very close proximity to me. A number of researchers believe that the sounds recorded prior to the tree falling suggest that the tree was being pushed over. Sasquatch will often push down trees to try to scare people from an area. However, as I stood my ground, I captured something very compelling on camera that many believe was a Sasquatch. The figure in question was not there moments before as I flirted the area prior to the tree fall. However, clearly there is a dramatic change noted in the foreground between the shots. A number of researchers believe that the temperature variance you see in front of the figure is likely a tree, and the creature was peering out from behind it. I returned to the area the following day to conduct an investigation and to do a recreation, and I also posted a YouTube video sharing my conclusion. And although I ultimately did not conclude this was Sasquatch, a number of individuals have since contacted me sharing their opinions that, yes indeed, it was. And although this figure does bear some amazing physical similarities of a Sasquatch, and that the behavioral characteristics noted were consistent with Sasquatch behavior, I still consider this footage inconclusive. So I do enjoy cooking. In fact, my home is usually the holiday house where all the family will come here and I will prepare a traditional holiday feast for them. And so I do like cooking, and I think that all of us are in need of some sort of comfort food. And prior to the shelter-in-place directive going into place, I went to the grocery store to pick up some supplies. And one thing I picked up quite a bit of were the tortillas, because tortillas will store for an incredible length of time. In fact, they make great camping substitutes for bread, and that's something to keep in mind. So I have plenty of tortillas. I also have some hamburger in the freezer, and I picked up a cabbage because cabbage is another item that will store really well. So I'm thinking, since we're in the need of comfort food, why don't we whip up some tacos? This past winter has been uncharacteristically warm in the surrounding area, and the lower elevations around Bass Lake were pretty much void of snow. And as a result, I do not believe the Sasquatch had moved into these areas this year. So as a result, I began an investigation in a new area of interest that was at a much higher elevation, just below the snow line. And while in this area, I discovered a curious rock stack and plenty of evidence that there were an abundance of animals in the area. I also discovered some very curious impressions that were approximately 11 inches in length, and although I dismissed these impressions because I felt they were lacking in detail to make a definitive identification, and I was also dismissive of their size, I received a number of messages from you guys supporting that these impressions could have come from a juvenile Sasquatch. Agreeing that the shape and consistencies noted between these impressions concluded these impressions could not have come from a bear, and the size of the impressions were within an acceptable range, I still conclude that these impressions were inconclusive. However, you guys definitely encouraged me to continue my investigation of the area, an investigation that eventually produced results. Following the encounter we had with the Sasquatch last month, I have received numerous messages regarding the audio recordings I obtained during that incident, and I thought I would share them again with you guys here. After the discovery of those curious impressions I discovered in that new area of interest, you guys encouraged me to head back up into that area, and on March 3rd, 2020, that's exactly what I did. However, having taken into consideration that the impressions I discovered, if they were Sasquatch tracks, appeared old and weathered, and I decided to head further up the mountain because I believe the Sasquatch liked to hang out just below the snow line. As I moved higher up the mountain, I soon discovered quite a bit of snow on the road, and I was eventually forced to turn around and head back down the mountain. However, I decided to stop off at a location I had noticed earlier that looked like a very promising area to search for Sasquatch tracks in the snow. And as I pulled into the area and parked my vehicle, I heard an unmistakable Sasquatch vocalization coming from the embankment above me. And although I did not capture that initial vocalization on audio, I did capture some very compelling audio recordings. The first recordings were of sounds captured on the parabolic microphone that were coming from the embankment above me. You will hear some primate grunting sounds, followed by an outburst of wood knocking, which is immediately followed by a primate huff sound. The second audio recording was also captured on the parabolic microphone and were of bipedal footsteps as the Sasquatch began moving out of the area. The fourth step lands on snow that causes that crunching sound. The other interesting audio recordings captured that day were the unusual tapping sounds that were recorded next to the heavy brush. Having reviewed all the audio recordings at great length and having had experienced the initial vocalization, I absolutely wholeheartedly believe that these audio recordings did come from a Sasquatch. Another interesting thing that happened that day when we encountered the Sasquatch was the unusual equipment malfunctions. I have mentioned this several times before, that equipment malfunctions are common when the Sasquatch are in close proximity. So I'm absolutely interested in what your thoughts are, and I'm going to insert a YouTube poll here. And I'm going to ask you, do you think that the unexplainable equipment malfunctions that we're experiencing while out in the field can be attributed to Sasquatch phenomenon? Meaning, do you think that the Sasquatch are somehow causing this interference to our electronics? And I absolutely encourage you guys to vote. In 2013, I launched an ambitious camera project in the Sierra Nevada mountains with the hopes of capturing a photograph of a Sasquatch. And although I still have yet to succeed, I have discovered some very curious rock stacks that are appearing near my cameras. However, they always appear just outside of the camera's view. And although this phenomenon is most likely human activity, there are a number of researchers out there who believe that Sasquatch are stacking these rocks to warn others of its kind to steer clear of the cameras. And if this is the case, it absolutely puts the Sasquatch's intelligence into a whole new ballpark. Regardless of who is stacking these rocks, one thing is clear. This project has captured some breathtaking wildlife images. Though this camera project has brought in some really incredible wildlife photographs, we still have yet to capture a photograph of a Sasquatch. And the rock stacking, though most likely the result of human activity, the location of these rock stacks defy explanation, and until more evidence is gathered, the rock stacking remains inconclusive. Alrighty, time to give it a try. It's really good. Not your typical taco recipe, however, this taco was truly one of the best tacos I have ever eaten. The mingling of flavors between the garlic, red chili pepper, and lime juice was quite exceptional, and the cabbage added a unique texture and flavoring to the whole ensemble that took this taco to a whole new level. Though I eyeballed the ingredients, I will add an ingredients list in the video description below. And I highly recommend you guys give this unique taco a try. So I want to thank you guys again for your continued support of my channel, and I hope you enjoyed this leisure day at home, and I hope you're getting excited for the up and coming videos as I get back into that new area of interest to hopefully encounter the Sasquatch. And for those of you who have yet to subscribe, I definitely encourage you to do so and hit the notification bell so you'll be notified when I upload future videos. Until next time, I'm Darren Smith, and I'll see you here at squatchspot.com.